graveyard Photoshop background, unless you would like to create your own background in Adobe Firefly, but I think it's easier just to start with a photo that you have. So if you haven't downloaded the graveyard yet, go ahead and download the graveyard first. So I'm going to open that image. And we don't have to use all of these images that I've pulled. I'm just going to kind of see where my imagination takes me. And you guys can create a different composite photo. It does not have to match mine exactly. I'm just going to show you some of the things that you can do. So if you just want to sit back and watch this for now and then try piecing yours together later, that might be a good approach. And then again, this video will be posted online so that you can always go, follow back up and see what I did. Okay, so I'm going to find my graveyard and open. So I always suggest starting with some kind of a photo. And let's see, Jamon, would you mind turning the lights down for me just a little? Not turning them all the way off, but just down so we can see. Okay, so the first thing that pops up is my Camera Raw filter where I can adjust. That's perfect. Yeah, I like that. I can adjust all kinds of things in Camera Raw. And if you ever wanted to open Camera Raw again, you can find the filter menu at the top. Matthew, could you close your computer screen if you're going to do that? Chris, tap on Matthew's shoulder. Matthew, you're distracting me. Yeah, so you can follow along, but don't be watching videos. Okay, where was I? So there's like color grading that you can do. You can adjust like the color of the midtones. You can make the shadows more cool. You can make the highlights more warm. That tends to look more like an aged photo or something. So that's kind of cool. You can add a vignette to it. I'm not going to do that right now because I wanted to expand this photo. And then under basic, of course, you can change things like exposure if we want to make it look like it's more at nighttime. The highlights, you can affect just the highlights, just the blacks, just the shadows, that kind of thing. And clarity, I tend to think graveyards look better when they have more texture and clarity. Okay, and then I'm going to click open. So go ahead and open your graveyard. I'm just going to walk around and make sure everyone has it opened. So everyone open the graveyard. Open the graveyard. Matthew, you ready to follow along? Open your graveyard. Open the graveyard. Get the graveyard open. Find the graveyard. Make some adjustments. Yes, you can do your own. I'm just kind of making sure we're all on the same page. Come on, you're on the same page. Did you find the graveyard? So it's on Google Classroom. It's the very top thing. It says Advanced Compositing. Oh, Ricky, did you find it?
I didn't have it.
Okay, yeah, you can do your own thing. All right, so adjust your graveyard with Camera Raw until you get it to a point that you like. And now I'm going to make a copy of my background, of course, because I like doing that to have kind of a safety net in case I make some radical adjustments and want to go back in time. Okay, I noticed that I want to have, so my concept is I want to have ghosts kind of coming out of the graves. So I have these photos from Shutterfest that I took. I'll just kind of show you my photos that I have right now. Yes, come on.
Can we have Michael Jackson?
Yes, you can have Michael Jackson in your photo. Okay, so, and for that you might need to actually use Google because a AI generator can't generate real people because of like copyright issues. So you may have to go on Google and find a picture of Michael Jackson. Okay, so here's one of the pictures I took at Shutterfest. You could kind of select her and make like this angel ghost coming out of one of the graves. I have my friend Nikki here. She kind of looks like an angel ghost. This woman looks like some sort of Baroque era debutante or something. So this could be a ghost coming out of a grave. Let's see. Emma, would you mind closing the door for me? We have some noise from lunch. So I'm just kind of clicking through to show you what we have. We have some greenery if you wanted to add any green, like moss growing on the graves or anything like that later. This was AI generated. This was not a real photo. Here I generated some fog. I just typed in fog to the Adobe Firefly, and it came up with several different examples. That's the one I chose. Then I kind of like the break in the clouds of some solar rays. So again, you don't have to use all these. I'm not going to use all of them. I just kind of wanted to have some options. I'm going to put this in the background and have like a kind of this tall, creepy tree. This was from the creek. And then, of course, we have some cracks where I can maybe make the photo look aged or something at the end. So those are our options. I'm going to start with this ghost because I really like her outfit, and kind of make her transparent. So the first step is I need more space above my graves in order for my ghost to inhabit. So I'm going to use my expand, and I'll show you two ways to do this. The first is the generative expand, and the problem with that is you have to be 18 to be able to access that tool, just because of, like, I don't know, ethical issues with the types of things you can generate, because AI doesn't have a conscience, so it doesn't know the difference between right or wrong or inappropriate or not inappropriate. So with that being said, there are different ways that you can expand this photograph. So generative expand, I would just up here on the, and to watch up here, even though you can't do this, someday you will be 18, and if you have access to Photoshop or other programs like it, then this can be a cool tool to play around with. So if I just hit the check mark, it's going to try and guess what should be there when I hit generate based on what I do have. So it's thinking about it, and then it'll give me like 4 options of different skies, basically. And then usually it'll like write a tip out here so that you can improve each time you do it. So it says need a fast change. You can define how much you want it to expand by. Okay, it did a pretty good job. So there's the top of the tree, here's the clouds, it just sort of extended everything. And then if I wanted to try other versions, here's some other, here's with a blue sky, here's with like a purple sky. I kind of liked the first one with just the same color sky. So that was my generative expand. You can also do this if you're not 18. I'll just hide that one for right now. By expanding your workspace and then making a selection. So remember these 3 tools right up here. So look up here. You can see where my mouse is dancing. These 3 categories are my selection tools. So I can use the rectangular marquee, draw a rectangle around the area I want to fill. And then I can just go up to Edit, Fill, and I can use Content Aware. So this has been around for a few years. This is AI as well. It's just not quite as good as the generative expand that they just came out with this year, but it does something. So click OK. And I always have a little bit of overlap whenever I'm filling with Content Aware so that it has something to use. So it's going to take, it did not do a great job. So it's not as smart as generative expand. It just took what was down here and like extended it. So that's not going to work. So what we're going to have to do, so Command Z, is we'll probably have to place some clouds in here. And then maybe I'm going to fill the top half with my picture of the tree. So I'm going to go to, and this is what you might want to do since you don't have generative expand. So I'm going to go Edit, Place Embedded. So this is, where are you going? Okay. So this is a way to put multiple photos into one. So if you just want to place a photo in here, it's File, Place Embedded. And then I'm just going to find my tree picture, and I want that to be like the top half. And I don't want the creek, obviously, because that wouldn't make sense. So what I'm going to do is place this photo. I might lower the opacity so I can see where it overlaps to see if that's believable. So down here on the layers panel, I'm going to lower the opacity a little bit and just kind of line it up until I see my tree line is overlapping that tree line. There's some leaves on either side. I might make the tree off center a little bit. Okay, something like that. So now I'll turn up my opacity. And now I don't want the bottom half of this image. So this is, I'm going to do what's called a blending mask. So I just want the top half of the image, but I want there to be a little bit of a blend from opaque to transparent. So I'm going to add a mask. Let's think about this for a second. I'm going to hide the bottom of this image because right now it's all the way visible and this is all the way invisible. I kind of want it half and half. So I'm going to go down to the mask button at the bottom of my layers panel, add a mask. So right now I'm just kind of constructing the background. Click to add a mask, which is a non-destructive way of editing your layer. And then I'm going to go over here to the toolbar and grab the gradient tool. So the gradient will allow me to, and if I just click and drag, you can see what happens. It allows me to hide with black, reveal with white. So it's going to fade from hidden to revealed. So right now I can kind of see the creek. So I'm just going to try and find an in-between. And then I may have to like lower that down a little bit. There we go. And then there's extra up here. So let me see now if my content aware fill can take care of that. Generative Expand definitely would, but you guys don't have access to that, so I'm just going to try content aware. I have to rasterize it first. If you ever see this little icon down in the bottom of your layer, that means that it's a smart object, so it's protecting the pixels, which means you can't change those pixels. So you might want to rasterize if you want to do anything to it. So I'm going to right-click on the layer, go to rasterize layer, and now I can use my fill. So edit fill, content aware, click OK. And hopefully it doesn't do anything weird. I cross my fingers when I do this because I have no control. It decides what it's going to look like. Oh, for some reason it hid that. Okay. There it is. So I just filled the top of my mask with white because for some reason it chose to hide it. Okay, there we go. There's a little bit of redundancy between these two trees, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. Let's go ahead and get some ghosts going on. And I would go in and maybe make some selections of the grave sites or the gravestones and put them in front so that this doesn't look so artificial. But I might just, for now, use my paintbrush tool. So I'm going to paint with black to hide my trees. So I'm just going to paint to put my gravestones back in there. So you kind of see how that's working. Oop, there's one of my gravestones. Oh, there's sky. I don't want to do that. Okay, that's a little bit more believable. Looks pretty good. All right, so now I have to add a ghost. I'm going to go to the top layer and File, Place Embedded. Again, that's how we put a ghost, or not ghost, put a different image into this original picture. So which one did I like? I liked this one. She looks like some kind of Baroque era ghost. So I can change everything here in my camera raw first. She could be kind of warm and glowy. Maybe she has more contrast. I might make her less clear. The clarity is going to be a little bit, maybe dehaze. Lower the highlights. The exposure. Okay, so that's good enough for right now. I can always adjust that later too. Okay, so here is my ghost. And I need to get her separate from the background. She's a pretty good size, maybe too big, but I can go find my object select tool. I think this is the easiest one to use. You just drag around an area and it finds the object using AI. AI is getting pretty capable these days of doing just about whatever it is you need to do. Selecting things used to be very cumbersome, not very accurate, but now I can see a preview of my selection. I see I missed a couple of spots. It might need some editing. So I go up to my select and mask option. So look up here. If you're not watching, this is important. Whenever you get a selection, so notice I selected the object, going to select and mask will allow you to see what that selection looks like before you use it. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in. It really messed up on her hair because it couldn't tell the difference between her hair and the background. So what I might do is turn on my smart radius. And then using this refine edge brush, I can just kind of paint along where her hair is. And then it finds her hair on that edge. Hair is really good with this tool because it's complicated. Now, if I just want to like get rid of those areas in there, I can use my quick selection tool. Just hold down Option is subtract, and then whoops, that went too far. Notice how it's subtracting from the selection. Now it's adding to the selection. Okay, that's a pretty good edge now. That's why it's called refine edge, so I can really get the edge to match exactly what I want it to. So now to hide the background, again, I like to use masks for doing this so that it's non-destructive, so that background will still be there, it's just hidden. So I'm going to go down to the mask button again at the bottom of the layers panel. It's like a rectangle with a circle in the middle. So I click on that, it hides everything outside my marching ants. And now I have a pretty good ghost. But what's wrong with my ghost? Does it look like a ghost? Why not? Because we can't see through her, right? So we need to make her kind of transparent. Now you can do this in different ways. The first easiest way is just to lower the opacity on the layers panel. So you just lower the opacity, and here she kind of looks like a ghost emerging from the scene. And maybe I want to adjust the mask so that parts of her aren't showing. So I might use the brush tool, paint with black. I'm going to adjust the opacity so that it's maybe less of a flow. And maybe I like just have certain areas emerging, like hide parts of her arm. Maybe this part down here is all hidden. I don't like that edge. So see, I'm just like kind of editing it. And if I get too much, then maybe I'm gonna go back to white and paint with white to bring those areas back. Okay, so painting with black, just to kind of make my ghost somewhat more mysterious. She's just sort of emerging. Okay, another cool thing that you can do instead of lowering the opacity, and that even looks kind of cool with parts of her disappearing, is I can change the blending mode. So right next to where it says opacity, it says normal. These are your blending modes. You might remember from photo 1, these affect how one layer shows through another. It adds special effects where they overlap. So I can add darken, this category, that one looks kind of cool. We'll make them darker where they overlap. I like multiply so far. This next category makes them lighten. Ooh, that one looks very ghostly screen. And then if I add that, I can always make a copy of this layer and it'll add it again. So now there's like 2 levels of screen. So that's just one thing that you can do. Yeah, overlay usually looks pretty good. I like that because it keeps her, I don't know if you can see that very well, but it's sort of like retaining her shadows there. So you really have to look for it. So you really can't trust a photo these days. If you see a photo of a ghost, it's probably been photoshopped because it's really easy to make ghosts in Photoshop. There's like a negative version of a ghost. There's a black and white ghost. Now I kind of like overlay. Overlay usually is my favorite. Might make another copy of overlay. And then I can add to this mask. Maybe increase my opacity a little bit. So you're working on your own, so you might be doing different stages than me. But I'm just gonna erase the bottom of her dress because it's a little bunchy and it kind of overlaps with the gravestones in weird ways. So I just kind of want her like emerging into the sky. You might add a second ghost. I liked my other ghost too. Oh, and if you wanted to make, I'm going to combine these two. So hold shift, merge layers. So now that's, oops, that didn't work. I guess I can't do that with blending mode. anything. Maybe link layers. You can do that. Or you can put both layers in a folder. And then if you try and make an adjustment to her, like say she's too yellow and I wanted to bring down that color balance somewhat, I can go up to Window, Adjustments. So remember those adjustment layers that you can add where you change the brightness or contrast of the image. I kind of like it a little darker. Now if I want to link it just to what's right below it, which happens to be my group 1, which is my ghost one. I like to rename layers so I stay organized. Then you want to click this little clip to button right below it. So now she's the only thing being affected by this adjustment layer. Okay, so if I drag that down, that's going to affect everything else. I kind of liked everything else being a little darker. What was this? Oh, I don't want that. I'm going to go ahead and erase that. Okay, so far so good. I might lower the opacity a little bit just to make her more blending in with the background. And I can try moving her around to different spots, see where it might look better. I like her face in the clouds. Okay, another ghost that I had that you can play with, so File, Place, Embedded. And you can get as nitpicky on this as you want with all these little details. I'm trying to go fast, but here's kind of this angel wings. Again, I can make adjustments with Camera Raw first. Maybe I want her shadows to be a little brighter so that she'll just blend in better. And you can zoom in. Okay. Yeah, that looks kind of nice. So again, that selection tool that I can use is the Object Select tool. So if I drag around her, it should find her in front of the background. And then you can hit the mask button to hide everything else. So first I would select and mask. Let's check the edges of this feather. I'm sure this needs a little bit of work. And I know it's really hard to see up here, being kind of small, but once it opens, you can zoom in. And I like viewing it on red because it's easier to see that edge. Okay, so right now, I think this edge needs a little bit of refinement. So you go to the Refine Edge brush, which is the second icon here. Turn on Smart Radius. And then just kind of drag. You can make it bigger or smaller with the right or the left bracket keys. And if I just drag along there, it finds that edge really accurately because it's finding all the fuzz. So this is good for green screen work. If you have like a green screen behind someone and their hair is kind of getting lost. See, that was too much. So I might make this cursor a little smaller. Try and go in and refine that a little bit more accurately. I don't know if you can see what this is doing, but as I drag along that edge, it's finding it. Now this area, we missed it completely, so go back to the quick selection tool, hold down Option. Oops, it deselected everything. So somehow we're gonna have to get that edge out later. No, it's deselecting everything. So I'm gonna go back to my Refine Edge. Okay, good enough for what we're doing. Click OK. And then if I want to get rid of this, I could just use my lasso tool and click Subtract from Selection and then just kind of like hand draw it and then go in later and refine it further. She's going to be a ghost, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so that subtracted that from my selection. Now if I hit the mask button, she is separate from her background. I'm going to hide the Baroque lady. Maybe we'll layer them later. And then she's going to be kind of rising from the graves. If you want to add some layer styles to anything, so see how she's kind of like a different color scheme going on than what's down here. We can add that from the bottom of the layers panel. So down where it says FX, this is how you add things like, oh, a drop shadow and outer glow if you wanted to make her look like she's a glowing angel. I don't know, you can add like a white outer glow or something. There, she's kind of glowing a little bit. And then we can also add like a color overlay. Let's see, what color do we want? Oh, I think it's adding it to the other layer style. So FX down here, color overlay. Let's see. And then I can always lighten it. So if it's like a teal, lower the opacity of that color overlay, and then you're just kind of compensating for the color balance here. So those are layer styles that you can play with. And then, of course, we can lower the opacity again on the angel. Or just in certain areas, like you can add to the mask with the brush tool. Hide certain parts. Maybe reveal those parts again if you took off too much. Remember, you can lower the opacity of your brush so that each time you click, it's like less of an intense change. Oh yeah, now let's add some fog. Change the blending mode. I kind of like her just sort of semi-transparent. She's blending in with that tree a little bit. Okay, so file, place embedded. I'm doing a little bit of redundant work just so you can see these techniques again. So fog, and you can make yours as detailed as you want. But this fog, we can add that blending mask again because we want the bottom of the fog. We don't want the top. So if we add a mask, and then we use the gradient tool, drag from white to black, it'll hide the top and reveal the bottom, and then we can just add a blending mode to make that fog a little bit more believable. Here we go. So all these different blending modes do different things. That one looks kind of cool. Some of these are more radical. Maybe screen, and then you can always, on that mask, adjust it using the brush and paint with black and say, oh, I want like some of these graves over here to show up. I don't like this line up here at the top. It's kind of artificial looking. There we go. And then you can like manipulate where you put the fog. Maybe it's just falling over the graves. Something like that. Command T, you can rotate the fog. Have it coming in at an angle. Okay, and then we have this weird edge here that I might need to erase using my brush and painting on my mask. Okay. All right, what else do we need? What else do we have? File, place embedded. So now you're just kind of stacking photos. And you're just compositing is what that's called. I could do the sun rays. Maybe I have some of those at the top. So again, for this, I would hit enter. I would add a mask, use my gradient tool, blend the bottom so that it fades. The longer that blend, the more gradual the fade. And then add a blending mode. or just lower the opacity or the fill. Or we could put my ghost on top in front of the clouds behind. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. I think I had a lantern and I wanted to maybe make this look like it's nighttime. So I can add an adjustment layer of brightness and contrast, or you know what, we could do levels. And then you adjust the medium values, make them a little darker, maybe bring down the highlights somewhat. So now it's kind of looking more spooky. Maybe my angel needs to be more transparent. I'll move her around so she's not overlapping that tree. Here we go. It's better composition. So you're turning something in for this tutorial. This going to go in the grade book as Photoshop tutorial number 2, but it does not have to match mine exactly. You can use your own images. You can use my images. You can generate images with Adobe Firefly. And then if you wanted to try using the content aware fill instead of the generative expand, you can make the graveyard bigger or whatever photo you started from in order to place your images on there. But I do want to see you using some camera raw, some different opacities like blending modes or the opacity slider, maybe adding a blending mask, and then playing with the color overlay in order to get different layer styles. Okay, I'm going to put my lantern in here last. So file, place embedded. Oh yeah, I was going to do cracks. Let's do that as like just an overlay over the whole thing. I don't want this dog in here, but I do want the crack. So I could either make it so big that the dog's not in there, or I can fill it. So if you wanted to fill an area, you just use the lasso tool, select, and then, oh, it would help if this was rasterized. So rasterize layer. Oh, this is on subtract from selection. So on the options bar, make sure it says add to selection. Here we have our dog. And then we're going to go to edit, fill, and this is content aware will do a good job with this because it's a pretty simple background. So we'll just fill that area with what's behind it or what it thinks should be there based on what's behind it. So it's going to get rid of my dog. Did not do a great job with that. I'll show you what edit generative fill does instead. This is just a smarter AI tool. And again, you have to be 18 to use this one, but I just hit generate and it will fill that area. And if you have a really specific idea and you want to use generative fill, then we can collaborate. You just send me the picture, I'll sit next to you, you can kind of use my computer and tell me what to click on and see a much better job of filling it. Because another thing you can do, Command Z, with the generative fill is put anything you want there. So for example, edit generative fill. What's something I could put here instead of a dog? What should I type into my prompt? This is, again, just like that Adobe Firefly AI, where you can fill it with whatever you want. Throw out some ideas. A beach ball, okay. How about a kitten playing with a beach ball? And we'll see how well it does. It's going to take into account the size, like what's the scale of the photo, what's the depth of field, what's going on around it. There it is. There's a kitten. It's not really playing with a beach ball, but if I scroll down, here are some other options. There's another kitten playing with a different kind of ball, and here's a third kitten. And I could just keep generating as many times as I want and get different kittens with different beach balls. Again, this has never been done before. It'll never be done again. Each of these images is unique to you, so it's technically your image that you've generated. Oh, I like that one. Okay. Anyway, we don't want our kitten though. We want just a regular background. So I'm just going to get rid of the prompt, hit generate, and then it's just going to try and fill it with the cracks. I have to wait for it to go. And then I'm just going to overlay this over the whole image. There, it did a pretty good job. Where did my cracks go? Oh, Nancy, I didn't realize. It makes it a separate layer. So hold shift, combine, merge layers. So now those are all on one layer. Okay, so don't forget to merge your layers if you do like a generative expand or fill. Okay, so now I can add a blending mode. Let's see what will make it kind of look aged. And it's just a stylistic approach. Maybe lighten, and then I can lower the fill or lower the opacity somewhat. Make it like a subtle change. Oh, I'm on levels, that's why it's not working. If 9 times out of 10, if something's not working, look at the layer you're on. That's probably what's wrong. Okay. Any questions? I'm just kind of playing now. There's a lot you can do. Okay, don't forget to save your work. So file, save as, and I'd probably go back and redo parts of this just to make it a little bit more convincing. Oh yeah, I was gonna add the lantern. So kind of finish up yours while I'm finishing up mine. File, place, embedded. Or you can start it now that you've kind of seen where we're going with it. We're here till 12:40. Yeah, so we have like 8 more minutes, so you could either start this and then save as, or you can finish what you've gotten so far. I'm going to try placing that lantern. And this, again, came from one of my photos. I just went to uploaded it to Firefly and then hit generate, and I made it from daytime to nighttime. So, oh, that's also something cool that you can do with a neural filter. So let me try this first. So I'm just going to lasso this area. This is all I want. And then with select and mask, I'm just going to feather this edge. So over here to the right, I'm going to click on feather. And I can also shift the edge in a little bit from where I had it before. Click OK. And then I'm just going to hit mask, so it's going to hide everything outside of that, the marching ants. So now this needs to be blended in a little bit better. So maybe like that. That one screen looks pretty good. Looks like a lantern there in my graveyard, kind of illuminating her. And what was I going to do? Oh yeah, I was going to show you the neural filters. So if I wanted to make this scene more like nighttime, I'm just going to save as right now and open it in a new tab. So file, save as. I'm going to save it as a copy, and I'm going to save it as a JPEG. So it's going to be like flattened, so there won't be any layers. Okay, so here's my new version. I can't edit any of those layers further. They're all set in stone now. No pun intended. Okay, so now I'm gonna file, open my document here. And then this is kind of a cool new thing. They're called neural filters. So I'm just gonna make a copy of my background layer, go up to the filter menu, and go down to, oh gosh, there it is, neural filters. And I haven't experimented with this a whole lot. It's brand new. But you can do things with portraits like smoothing out skin, adding makeup. That's kind of crazy. You can take like the makeup from one photo and apply it to another photo. Just smart portrait edits. If you turn that on, it'll find her face. And then you can make her happier and make her smiling. I don't know. It's crazy the things you can do. But I would go to like the landscape mixer for this one. And then you can either add like these presets. I'm going to turn it on. So if you add this preset here and turn up the strength, it'll combine the two. You can make it more nighttime. It's thinking. Ooh, that's kind of cool. So it added it with this preset. So it had this coloration. I can turn down the strength a little bit. You just have to give it time to render. So the clouds look very like nighttime because I turned up the night. I can turn down the night a little bit. So now it's just kind of halfway in between. You can make it more sunset. You can even upload your own custom image to have the two images blend together. So once the spinning wheel of death is done. So to upload an image, let's see, which one do I want to use? Oh, Sophie, would you mind answering that? Ooh, maybe if I add this living wall. Let's see what happens here. This one is the one with all the plants. So if I combine this landscape with this wall of plants, let's see what it looks like.